Hey, blue collar businessmen, it's Aaron Kimball again. I'm here with Jacob, and we're going to talk about wives in the business and what it's like to try to grow your business and at the same time trying to keep your marriage whole too. Jacob, you have grown some businesses and you've done some really cool things. Would you kind of share us the struggles that you had because you got 4 kids, right?
Yep.
And
Yep.
the struggles that you have went through and grown your business and trying to get through where they are today with your wife and with your kids.
Okay. Yeah. It's been it's been a fun journey. I the decision to leave corporate America and start building my own business was very difficult because there's um, it's really nice to be able to rely on somebody else to solve half your problems when you don't have to worry, when it's not your responsibility to make sure that the check lands every single week and that you actually have money in the bank. um, there's a lot of stress that you don't have to deal with, and when it suddenly becomes me and my wife's stress to make sure that there's money for us next week, um, things definitely change. And that fear, I know, stops a lot of people from um, being willing to go long term with um, their own businesses. I have been incredibly blessed because my wife supports me very much, um, but the support is also two ways. There's I'll say this: at the beginning of our journey, things got really scary, and it was because simultaneously I had a business partner pass away, and suddenly I had to start working a lot harder to cover that. It was he was perfectly healthy the day before. I'd spent probably 2 hours on the phone with him the day before, and he had a pulmonary embolism in the middle of the night, the next night. Just completely crazy, completely shocking. But he was running his own business, and so his wife was suddenly in a spot where where's her next dollar come from, because her husband just died and he was the one that made all the money. And so when I talked to her, I kind of said, hey, don't worry about his business for the next 30, 45 days. Just worry about everything else. And I said, I will keep the business going. No reason for you to stress about that. So that happened. And at the same time, my wife my wife gets pretty darn sick during her first trimester. And so we had one of our kids that she was pregnant with. And all of a sudden, she was pretty much bedridden. And so all of a sudden, I had way more work to do. And my wife was in bed sick with being pregnant. And it was psychotic. And I had to sacrifice everything day in and day out. And my primary goal was to make sure that she was perfectly happy with everything in her life, because she's my wife. And if you know if I build the greatest business but I lose my wife in the process, that's not going to be happiness to me. And so I had to sacrifice, and I know I made some bad business decisions. I know that I lost some customers during that time because I was paying more attention to my wife than I was paying to business. But I was also very upfront with my customers, and I let them know, hey, um, I've had chaos in the last 2 months. Um, this is where I'm at, and honestly, things are not going to get easier for the next couple months. So if you feel that I can't service you appropriately, I will do everything I can to help you find somebody else that will service you how you need serviced. And I did, and it was great. But um, through that, I think that what my wife saw was that she is the love of my life and that I will do anything for her. And the value that that's provided me is 6 months later, a year later, when there's other sacrifices that need made, she's willing to sacrifice for me. She's willing to be patient for me because I reciprocated that. And I think that sometimes it's easy to get caught up as a entrepreneur thinking, well, my wife should just understand that everything I'm doing is for her, that everything I'm doing is to build a life for us that we want. And she just needs to understand that I'm doing everything for her. Well, I agree, but we can also turn the table and say, well, don't you realize that everything your wife's doing for you? And I think sometimes we miss that. And because it's as the entrepreneur, we've got so many other people coming to us to work and solve their problems because that's what we do. And adding one more person in just creates so much more stress. And the easy thing to do is say, oh, well, we're married. My wife's not going anywhere, but she might. And so we have to honor that first. And I will admit I have been incredibly blessed that because of those deposits that I've been putting into the relationship with my wife, there has been there was one opportunity a couple years ago that I needed to put out $25,000, and I was honestly scared to talk to my wife about it because I was like, we've never made that kind of a one-time single investment in anything. Um, and I was not confident at all that I was going to be able to sell it to her and that she'd say, yes, go spend that 25,000. But when I got finished telling her everything, her question was, do you believe that you'll be able to get that 25,000 in value back, either financially or from personal growth that'll help us with our business? And that was such an insightful question to me.
Mm.
And I was able to look right back at her and say, absolutely. There's no way we will not get this money back. And she said, okay. I was like, wait, it was that easy? I know that I've been blessed with a wife that is incredibly supportive in those situations, but I'm also very confident that it's because of me being willing to sacrifice my time to make sure that she knows that she is very important. And that's not easy. There's so much stress that we get as entrepreneurs that it's easy to just say, you know what, just deal with it, wife, just deal with it, kids. Which I'll say right now, I'm going through one of these growth phases right now, and lots of chaos in different places. And um, because we weren't in the. Sometimes it's just easier to text my wife because of how busy life gets. And I told her, hey, we've got to get a date planned. And her response was, I know, it's been like 2 weeks. And or 2 months. I mean, not 2 months, not 2 weeks. And it's true. Every once in a while, life gets so busy that me and my wife don't go on a one-on-one date for a month or two. And she reminded me, she let me know. I wasn't offended by it, but I know I haven't done it right. And so that's something that now we had that text last night. We've got a date for next Saturday. Well, we've chosen the date. We haven't figured out what we're doing yet, but we know that next Saturday there will be something, date one-on-one, her and I, to make sure that we don't lose what we've been building up. But that's kind of a maybe longer than what you wanted explanation of why I feel that my wife supports me, and the challenges of being an entrepreneur, kind of an introduction to me and some of my thoughts.
Well, the coolest thing that I saw is your values and your morals, what you said, are exactly what family businessmen values and morals are. You talked and you didn't say it, but I could tell your faith was first. Like y'all's faith first, y'all's faith in each other, y'all's faith in God is first. And your faith in the business of going to make it. I could tell that was first. And then second, your family was more important to you than anything else. Because without your family, why are you doing a business, right?
Yeah,
So your family was second, and then third was your business. And you still can make all of them work together if you have your right priorities and they're all balanced, right?
yeah,
Because and you did not get any of those out of line, and yet you're still able to get to where you want to get to. But because I know, like me, that's been mine too. There has been times where my wife has not always agreed with everything I did, especially when I started Family Businessman, because it's an unknown business, right?
yeah, yeah.
Like real estate, doing cattle, that I mean, we all see that every day, right? That's like not a big deal. Everybody knows that. But when you start something that's so unknown, for me, that was the hardest thing because you're doing what? How does this work? I don't know. So that was a toughest part for me is I just had to keep moving forward, going, hey, look, I'm going to do this. I just need your support. I'm not asking for your permission, but I'm going to do this. This is where I felt like I'm called to go.
Yep.
So, when you're going through those steps, like, because when I've been building this is like the hardest thing I've ever done. But it's also been the most gratifying to be able to help people at the same time. Because a lot of the big visions that you see, you're not always going to see right off the bat. And your fruit is not going to come right off the bat. Because I'm sure there's been a lot of times in you and your wife's life that haven't been the easiest. And probably sometimes she may have looked at you and said, what the heck are you doing?
Totally. And I want to tag on what you said there, the fruit. Um, I think it's also one of the things I think has also helped my wife and I put faith over fear is recognizing the many fruits that are coming. Finances are one fruit, but family is another fruit. And as we watch our children grow and we see them hit a milestone, or one of the things that was really cool was um, one of our daughters got invited to a party with some friends, and one of our daughters, who's they're close to the same age, um, she kind of wanted to be invited, but she didn't. Parties have to cut it somewhere.
Yeah.
You can't host 1,000 kids. You got to, and I understand that. But my daughter made a comment that she felt a little left out, and she also knew that another friend um, had a sister that was invited, and her little sister wasn't. And my daughter said, I just feel bad that me and my other friend both got left out, and I wish that we could both go to a party. And I just kind of agreed with her, and kind of told her, hey, it happens. And like 2 hours later, she came up to me. She goes, Dad, I have a question. She said, so I know that I kind of feel left out, and I know that my friend kind of feels left out. Could I have a party with her and me and maybe a few other friends that might feel left out, and we could just have a party at our house? And in that moment, it was like, there's a fruit, there's a fruit.
Hmm.
Because my daughter, because we're not so focused on just finances, we're able to spend time, and she recognizes that serving other people is what God wants us to do. And so it was actually just 2 days ago, we had this little party at our house, and we had several little kids come over, and we had some stuff for them to do, and it was a ton of fun. And I was just so grateful that she recognized that she can do something to help other people feel included. And that was awesome. And
Mm.
honestly, if we were living the traditional life of me working my corporate job of 40 to 60 hours a week and everything else that the average individual does, I don't know that we would have taught my daughter at 7 years old, um, that she was empowered to do those kinds of things. And I loved it. I was like, you know what? Every once in a while, I get that sign that even though I know I make plenty of mistakes, there was a success. There was a success. And so the fruits are, and that's what my wife and I, when we do go on our one-on-one dates, that's one of the things that we try to talk about too, to try to stay centered in supporting each other, is recognizing the non-financial fruits in our life.
Yeah.
Because if we don't take the time to recognize those, well, if all you're trying to recognize is the financial fruits, and you end up with some financial burden, yeah, of course you're gonna have a lot of chaos in your life. But when the financial burden is significant, but you also recognize the family and the freedom of time and everything else, like, the ability that we have as a family because of this new lifestyle, this entrepreneur family business lifestyle, the freedom that we have to just all of a sudden be like, you know what, let's go on a little quick family vacation tomorrow. Like, there's nothing stopping us. We just get to.
Mm.
And we've moved to Tennessee. I know you know that, and it's a totally new area for us. And so we've gone and discovered Kentucky, and we've gone and discovered the Carolinas, and it was just somewhere it's like, let's just go do that tomorrow. Okay, let's go. And that freedom's incredible. And so when we talk about the success that we're having, making sure that the conversation includes, you know, less discussion around finances, I think has also allowed us to stay centered and satisfied, even when the finances have become a little tricky, because we've had everybody does.
Yeah,
You
everybody
know,
does.
you
Everybody
have
does.
those moments when you're looking at the bank account going, oh man, we really wanted to XYZ, and that's totally not possible. And we just have to sit back and say, maybe it's because the Lord wants us on a different path, and we're too stubborn to discover that path on our own. And so the Lord's like, all right, well, I know if I force you down this way, you're going to hit rock bottom, and you're going to have no choice but to look at this other path over here. Like, and then you can go like the Lord gave us the chance to find the path when we were up here, but we neglected it, and we couldn't just step over here. We had to go down here to be, and it happens. It happens to all of us. And hindsight's 2020. I can think of a few times where I'm like, if I would have pivoted from here to here, I probably would have avoided some pain. Why did I not see that? I should have seen that, but I didn't. Whatever. And so, we all hit that, and it's not just once, and it's in different aspects of our life, but we hit it. We recognize there's another path because the Lord helps us, and we go. But if, again, I can't I can't say enough about how important it is to recognize that the fruits are not just finances, but it's all these other things. And when you're focusing on those, I think it's easier to have a conversation with your wife about the negative of finances when
Mhm.
you're also having a conversation about the positive fruit that exists in all these other areas.
No, you're exactly right. And the reason why we all build our business, right, is for our kids, right? And when you
Yeah,
start involving your family in the business and you do it as a whole and you push it together, then things start really, really changing. And what I keep hearing from you is that's the most important thing. You know, our business is important, but we can't just look at that. We have to look at everything, right?
yep,
If we
yeah,
look at everything, then we're okay. Then we don't have to
right,
worry about
right,
it.
right.
And that's the coolest thing that you've been pushing. There's one of them.
Yeah, here's one of them right now. She's
Yes.
just gonna say hi real quick. She just woke up. Hi. You say hi?
Hi, how are you? She's like, I have no idea. I got one. Rainy, go. You know, get a shirt on. I got one trying to do the same thing without no shirt on. Go on, baby.
uh,
So,
you know what? And it's so funny because you know, um uh before we'll just say it. I hate saying it because you know, but before the pandemic, I don't like saying before the pandemic because you know, it's just another phase of life. Who cares? But before the pandemic,
I'm gonna close the door.
um,
Go ahead. Keep going. I can hear you.
it wasn't as uh, okay for your kids to randomly walk into your virtual meetings. Um, but it's okay now. Like it happens to everybody. Like how many funny videos exist on the internet of people whose kids have walked in and done something just ridiculous during a meeting that was recorded, and then we save it and we post it, and it's so the norm. And I love it. Like I actually had one customer one day who made the comment that if I were to be able to get through an entire meeting without one of my kids coming in to say hi, he would feel like the meeting wasn't as fun. Like he said, he honestly looks forward to that surprise visit from one of my kids during the meeting. And I said I enjoy it too, because that's why I work from home.
Yeah.
I love being able to, as soon as this meeting's over, I love being able to go check on my kids, give them a hug, help them with whatever they need real quick, and then come back about my day. It's awesome. And I love that my kids, if my kids didn't want to be a part of my day, you know, that would be a total bummer to me. I mean, my kids, they like when I've started, I don't know if I've told you this, but when I have to fly to go see a customer, it's been about the last year. I take one of my kids and I rotate through them.
Mhm.
And so I buy a ticket for my kid and they go with me to do this work. And because I'm teaching the kids the family business. B, they're getting a lot of one-on-one time, and I make sure my customers know. You know, let's say I'm bringing my kid. This is her age. This is whatever, and so that they're aware. And it was actually totally fun on one of the trips. Um, we had scheduled about 16 hours to be. We did it in a 1 day trip, and I knew that at bare minimum I was going to need probably 5 or 6 hours because things don't always go perfect. But worst case scenario, I was going to need 12 or 13 hours to get all these issues solved for a customer. And the Lord blessed me. Honestly, things went better than I could ever imagine. Like I was done before lunch. I was done in like 3 hours. And it was so awesome because at that point it was, all right, you tell us what we're doing next. And I just let my daughter say where we were going next and what we were doing. And it was awesome because we spent 10 hours. Like, she was the boss for 10 hours. We were stuck like I normally it's like, oh, we're done early. Well, yeah, let's go finish having lunch and then go home, and I'm going to go get other work done. But I was trapped.
Yeah.
I could do nothing but spend quality time with my daughter. It was so awesome. I wore her out. Like, at the end of the night, she was worn out. I wasn't. I won. It was amazing. And so I've enjoyed that. It's another little thing. I don't know. I know that not all businesses can allow that. But for me, with my path, that was an idea we had about a year ago. Just, why not do something unique and fly with one of my kids to these cities where I've got customers and make them spend the day with me. But when stuff's done, dedicate the rest of it to them. And it was
That
it was
is
awesome. It was
that is
awesome.
awesome. And that's what I think a lot of people don't get is stopping and taking the time to take your kids with you to, to your work, to what you actually do, right? In the business. Teach them the
Yeah,
business stuff
yeah,
because you're teaching them how to have conversations with people. You're teaching them how to work. You're teaching them some self-discipline, and all those cool things come together. And at the same time, your wife is seeing that you're involved in the kids, which gives her more security. And the problem that I see a lot of times with a lot of men is they don't give their wife any security. And that security comes from one, being the provider they need to be for home. That means being with your family, right?
yeah.
Being the man you need to be. And then your finances, you're not given enough finances. But if you first build the security, like they know that you're there for them,
Mhm.
like that whole dynamic, exactly what you did with your wife, and then you can build the finances on top of that.
Yeah, I like that, the security, because it is. It's like, you know, we 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 all um we all have to love, we all have to have time, we all have to have finances. I guess it's relationships, finances, time. There's one more in there somewhere that you hear people talk about, or the kind of the core needs all the time. But you're right. If you can't give, if you're in a spot in your business where you can't give the security around finances, you have to give it around relationship. You have to
Yes.
give it around time. And it is like, I know my wife will never ever complain when I say that I'm going to take a kid on a 2 or 3 day trip. Like, she's like, oh, but I want to have that extra child in the house that's going to say, mommy, 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 mommy. She's never going to say, please don't take that child. She's going to say, do you want to take two? And so it is, again, it and you're right. I know that I grew up on a farm, and so for me, there was always that opportunity to just step outside and work with dad. Like, it didn't matter. It was always, I can go work with dad. And so when I started my business in technology, like, well, I can't really just involve my kids like that's and I remember when I was working corporate, there were several times where I was like, man, like, honestly, I wish I could just bring my kid to work all day today just to hang out. Like, I know I'll be less effective. I know that, but I wish I could just hang out with my kid all day. And I honestly I don't think anyone would have batted an eye. Like, I know that even when I was corporate, people were aware of how family centered and faith centered I was. So I don't think anyone would have really questioned it. I could have abused the privilege for sure. But if I would have just randomly shown up once every couple of months with one of my kids all day long and just said, hey, I just want to spend time with my kid today. Like, that's all it is. Um, I honestly don't think anybody would have created grief about it. but it just wasn't the culture. I would have been confident, like, sometimes that's probably part of my problem with some of my relationships is honestly, like, if I would have walked in, one of my bosses would have said, your kid can't come into this meeting. I'd have been like, well, then I can't either. Bye. I'm sassy, whatever. But I would have had perfect confidence to respond like that. And just be like, dude, if you're not going to support me and my family, you're not supporting me as an employee. Fine. I'm not needed in this meeting today. Bye.
So right there where you're at, I want to stop you real fast because you just
All
said
right.
because you said confidence because you were grounded, right? With your with your faith, your family, and the relationship that y'all built, right? See, a lot of people don't build that relationship and they just expect people. And then even if they trying to build a relationship, let's say you're trying and your wife doesn't get there, you still got to have the confidence. Like it has to come together. You have to have the confidence to go do what you know you need to go do in order for them to start to believe, because not everybody believes on the same level, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people still of faith that don't have no belief system.
Mhm.
So if you have that, you still got to have the confidence to go do that in order to incorporate your family in on what you're doing, because that
Yeah.
confidence is so important. But you built
Yeah.
that confidence. Y'all's confidence came from being a family, and we know we're going to make it no matter what,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's also, when I've told my customers, hey, I'm bringing one of my kids with me, um, to that point, it's also the confidence of what are they going to do? Tell me no? Like
Exactly.
they need me to fly in and help them solve a problem. They need me in person. We haven't been able to solve it remotely. I need to be in person. What are they going to do? No, you can't come. You can't. Of course they're going to say yes. And again, like I also realize that it does create an additional burden to my customers. I acknowledge that, and I try to reduce that burden however I can. If it means that I have to do something special for my customer, if I have to add more value for them so that they're willing to take the additional burden of me bringing my child, I owe that to them. I know I owe that to them. And like I had one customer who
They steadily
I
wanted to be on camera. Keep
that's
going.
right. I have one customer who during I knew that I had two customers in the same town. I guess I should say that to get on the same page here. And I was spending most of the day with one customer, but the other one I just needed like 2 hours, and it was lunchtime. And so I told the customer, I said, hey, my daughter really, really wants to eat here. What do you want me to bring you from here for our meeting? And so we went and we ordered the food. We got something for the customer, and I took it to him. And we all ate together there at the office real quick, kind of introducing them to my child, and on and on. And it was just fun to have that moment and go. And so again, I brought extra value. I brought food for my customer. Um, you know, it was just a fun way to make it, but it is in a um, confident, hopefully not too prideful kind of way. What's the customer going to do? Tell me no? No.
No,
You're right. It's the confidence of this is what I'm doing, and I would never, like, if anybody, if you were to call me one day and say, hey, Jacob, we to solve this problem, I've got to come, we've got to be in person. And by the way, I've got to bring some of my kids with me. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, all right, well, hey, how can my wife, my family, how can we serve your kids while you're here to make sure that they absolutely enjoy the time that they're getting with their dad and everything else, so that it is a memory for their life. I will go out of my way to make sure that I serve you if I need something special like that from you. And I realize not everybody can do that, but that's what I'd do for you. And if that's what I'd do for you, I know that's what you'd hopefully do for me.
mhm.
But I'm also realistic, and I know that sometimes maybe you would have done that for me 6 months ago, but maybe in 6 months, you're going to be in a situation in your life where honestly, you can't. But because of our relationship, I know your heart would be there anyway. I know that you will offer whatever you can, no matter what. And I appreciate that. Even if you have to tell me, you know what, it's not a good time, XYZ. You know what? That's okay. It's not a good time for me sometimes too. And so, but I do that. Um, I have been told before that I have a level of confidence that probably has opened some doors for me. And um, I will also say that there's been a few times that people have made that comment to me, and my response has kind of been, I'm just honest. I'm just upfront. And you know, it's maybe that's a way to maybe dive into it a little deeper, is say, you know, I think my confidence comes from being willing to be vulnerable in
Mm.
any situation and not take offense from the outcome.
You know,
Because
keep going.
because um, when I call a customer and say I'm bringing my child, they absolutely have the right to say no. And if they do, I'm going to honor that. But I have to be willing to be vulnerable to accept a no from them, and have to have that
Mhm.
conversation with my child that you can't come. And that takes vulnerability. But then also, um, I have to be willing to um, do things not the way that I want, and to be honest with myself and my customer. And so maybe that's how we peel it back a little bit farther, is say the vulnerability and the willingness to not get what I want inspires my confidence, which it also creates the opposite effect. Like 99% of the time I get what I want because I just say it, I'm confident. But the only reason that works is because first I'm
Be vulnerable.
vulnerable and willing to accept not getting what I want, because it does happen. I,
Yep.
I there has been going back to the story of at the beginning of having to care for my wife when she was basically in bed with our latest pregnancy, and that was not what I wanted, but I accepted it. I gave it my all, and we got through it. And sometimes it happens with customers, and but it does. I've never actually broke confidence down to that level. So this was actually kind of fun to all of a sudden jump into with you. I think I'm right. I'm confident. I think I'm right there. What do you
That's
think?
that's all that matters. Because here's what I see is, if you're confident in what you're going to do, right, and you're very vulnerable, like let's say you had this great business idea or you're wanting to invest in your own knowledge, right? If you're very confident in it, and then you go talk to your wife and you're very vulnerable, like, hey, I want to go do this, I need to do this, or I want to do this business, and you're very confident, like, I know it's going to work, I just don't know when, but yes, we may lose some money, yes, it may be hard, and you're actually very confident but at the same time very vulnerable, that makes for a whole different type of conversation, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah,
you can actually work together and get what you want done, right? And even if she says, look, I don't agree, you can always go say, I know you don't agree, but I just need your support at this time,
mhm.
you know, but at least you are honest, you're very confident, and she sees, man, I'll tell you what, women see our confidence if we like to admit it or not. When we're not confident, they're not confident in the decisions that we make.
Yeah, totally. And you actually made me correlate something here, that at the beginning of my wife's and I marriage, we've been married for almost 15 years now, and um, there were definitely times where I feel like I was taking on the role of the emotional, vulnerable. Oftentimes we say that's the our wives are more of a female attribute of
Mm.
being vulnerable and emotional and all this during conversations, that the man needs to be just, oh, I'm so gruff and tough, and nothing gets under my skin. Um, but early on, there were a few times where I can remember taking that step back and I was the first one in our conversations to become during these one or two key conversations I can think of, I was the one to open up to vulnerability first. And when I did, I think it gave my wife and I that foundation that we both felt safe becoming completely vulnerable, and that's scary. That's
Yeah.
especially in the first couple years of a marriage. Like, you're still kind of like, wait, does she really love me for me? and, and, and so peeling that back and opening up to that core vulnerability, I think has also been incredibly helpful to our family business entrepreneurial journey, because I think my wife knows that I'll never hold anything from her. Like, if she really has a question about the business and she has a really big concern about what's going to happen in the next year, she knows that I'm willing to peel back the complexities, get completely vulnerable, tell her transparently everything going on, and she knows I'm not hiding anything. And so then together we build back the layers that will give us that foundation to where the business goes where we want it to go. And the business grows because of, I'm going to say 95% my effort, but I'm not capturing this in what's going on in my mind correctly, but 95% of the technical knowledge and everything else 100% of the technical knowledge for the business comes from me. I'm the
Mhm.
nerd, but 100% of the support for the business comes from my wife. And what I'm trying to convey here is that the business moves forward because of 95% of my efforts going forward. But my efforts wouldn't be possible without 100% of my wife's pushing me and planning and everything else. My wife is just as much a part of, we're a 50-50 split of the strategy. I guess maybe that's the right word, of the strategy of the business. We are absolutely in the strategy, 50-50 split together. We go the same direction with each other, but then I put 100% of my effort into completing that strategy that we came together. So, yes, she spends more time nurturing the kids day to day. She also has a job that she works. So we're both just going crazy all the time. But I put 100% of my effort in to accomplishing the dream that we built together. Maybe that's a way to say that better. But if we both weren't vulnerable with each other in our conversations, if we hadn't built that original foundation, we wouldn't be able to be building the business together like we are.
That's really cool because you said you're a foundation, and you got to have a foundation, right? And if your foundation is not deep enough, you can't build a tall building, right? And a tall building is your business. So if you want a bigger business, like if you're just doing not even six figures yet, your foundation is not deep enough. That means you haven't done enough work within your own family, within your own business, your own mind, in order to take it where you need to. And that may be why your wife won't go along with you, because you haven't built that foundation. You
Yep.
haven't become enough who you need to become in order to build that business, right? If you want to
Yep.
build that bigger business, the deeper the foundation has to be, the darker you got to go in order to get there. Because I would imagine at some point in time, y'all had some times where it probably wasn't. You probably always didn't agree.
Oh
So
yeah.
I was about to say, if you tell me that,
No,
not, I'm going to tell you,
we've
whoa, whoa,
we've
whoa.
never not agreed. We're absolutely same.
But the thing
Not a
about it
chance.
is y'all are able to come together and be vulnerable. And at some point in time, even with me, my wife she knows, sometimes she knows, but she don't want to know, right?
Yeah.
But if she ever asked, I don't have no problem telling her, like, this is where we are. We're doing good here, we're not doing good here, or we're really bad everywhere, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But you got to be vulnerable and honest, but at the same time, you got to be confident to know that it's okay. This is just a phase. This is just a
Yep.
season. We're in the summertime or it's in the
Yeah.
wintertime, and we're gonna.
My wife's confidence in our future is directly correlated to my own confidence
Yes,
in
yes,
where we're going. And
yes,
so if I were to sit down and be like, oh, you know, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. I have no clue what I'm going to do. That's probably going to change the nature of her support. But I'm inherently an optimistic person. That's something about, I think all entrepreneurs kind of have to be, because
yeah,
there's lots of realities in life where you're like, crap. And so, but I look at it from a different angle. I just I recognize there's something not working toward in the way I need. I change the perspective and I say, oh, this would be cool. And we start running that way. And because I'm confident that we will, it gives her security and confidence in me. And so you're right. I love that point.
yeah. And it's and you're so confident at the same time to know what you don't know at the same time, right? Confidence comes from not knowing knowing everything. Confidence comes from and you don't know everything and you're okay with that.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yep. I love it.
So when they're totally cool with that, and then they'll feed off you. So if you're not getting that support from your wife, it's probably because you're not confident. And the confidence that you think you have is really your pride. And everybody can see through pride. And pride will kill you. Pride will keep you broke way longer than anything else will, because pride's going to keep you from being vulnerable with your wife, right? Having those conversations that you got to have that are going to be really hard, and even disagreeing at the same time, saying, I'm going to go this path, but I just want you to know. And then pride's also going to keep you from saying, reaching out, going, hey, I need help. Because me and you have both invested a lot of money in getting to where we want to get to, right? In our minds and being around other people. We've invested
Yep.
both a ton of money. And
Yep.
what people don't understand is pride will get in the way of even you doing that.
Mhm.
If you're not willing to go, you know what? Maybe I could learn something from them. And the worst thing that ever happens is, let's say it costs me tens of thousands, say it cost me $20,000 to get in this group, being a whole bunch of like-minded. Even if I don't get nothing out of it, all I lost was money.
Yes. Yes.
It's not a big deal. But I see the people that struggle so much and have the problems with their wives. Everything revolves around one thing. You know what it is too. It's finances.
Mhm.
People that are struggling it always comes back to finances.
Yep.
So if you can get past that and look at the real things, just like you're talking about, your faith first, your family, taking your girls on your business trips, and you having the confidence to do that, having the confidence and being vulnerable enough to tell your clients what you're doing, telling your wife what you're going to do. It all comes in full circle. But if you don't have the confidence and all you have is pride and ego, your wife's not going to follow you with pride and ego. I can tell you that right now. Because what does it
You know,
always say? Pride and ego always come before the great fall.
mhm. As you were talking about that, the other thing that occurred to me was delayed gratification, I think, is another um, very useful to recognize. All right, I'm gonna take another half a step back. Um, I think sometimes for entrepreneurs and our relationships with our wives and other stuff, it's very useful to um, define certain emotions so that you can make sure that you're both on the same page. One of
Yeah.
those emotions, thoughts, whatever, that I think everybody should define with their spouse, with their family is delayed gratification, because as an entrepreneur, you got ups and downs. Sometimes that family vacation that you were sure you were going to be able to take next month gets delayed by 3 months, but we're still going to do it. I think that's also attributed to my wife's and my success, is recognizing the need for delayed gratification. Recognizing that when we set certain goals and we have a conversation during one of our dates and we're just up front and we say, hey, we're going to have to delay this decision. I think there's a lot of people in the world who refuse to accept delayed gratification.
Yes.
They refuse to accept that their plan will not work out perfectly. And to build on what you said about finances, probably 99% of the reason to implement a conversation around delayed gratification being positive in your life is because finances actually force you to implement delayed gratification. I'm sorry, we can't afford that this month. And that's hard, because again, I want nothing more than to be able to provide 1000% of the budget my wife wants, to be able to buy anything she wants, whenever she wants, however. Like, I love her so much. I want to give her everything and anything every single moment of every single day. Same thing for my kids, except I want them to learn how to work for it so that they're not spoiled brats. But but I will spoil my wife as much as I possibly can. She deserves it. But sometimes you have to have that hard conversation and just say,
That all goes back to being vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
All goes back to being vulnerable and confident.
Yeah.
Having confidence in your vulnerability to have the hard conversations.
Yeah.
And then going from those hard conversations to what you know you got to do no matter what comes out of those conversations, right?
Yep.
But you
Totally.
can't have confidence without being vulnerable. I love that, because I know, especially where we came from, vulnerability is something where you're not taught. So we can all recognize that right now.
Yep.
Like, coming from the blue collar background, vulnerability is not taught. It's taught as a sign of weakness. I'm going to tell you right now. Now, this is for all the men out there. If you can't learn to be vulnerable, you'll never have confidence to run a business the way you need to run it.
Yeah, I like that.
And if you are ready to be vulnerable with your wife, even no matter if she agrees with you in the way you want to take your business, at least she will see you being vulnerable, and she will start to gain that confidence in you over time. Like, it's not something that's going to happen over like that. Because it took you a long time to get here. It's going to take you a long time to get to where you need to get to, right? So
Yep.
you need to start building that, and start building that now. But I so appreciate you sharing that with us, even though your experience has been good for the most part. There's been times where it was really bad, I would imagine too, where you're fighting. But the thing about it is, you were very vulnerable, and you put your wife first. You showed your wife, coming out of the corporate job, you were going to put her first.
Yep.
Second behind your faith, right? But she was more important to you than your business, just starting out. So guys, if you're starting your business and you're not putting your family before your business, that could be why your business is suffering right now. That probably is why your business is suffering right now. If you're putting finances before everything else, that is what's going to keep you broke. It's going to keep you on the struggle bus forever. So it's time to make a decision on what you want to do. It's your choice to do what you know you need to do. So anyways, see y'all later. Guys, I really appreciate, like, subscribe, share, and we'll talk to you later.